The natural setting is obviously what brought people here. It's what brought industrialists here to bring us the site that we have today now. So it's nice that we have that marriage of the two things here between industrial complexes and really the natural preservation of this really idyllic place.
New Lanark is almost a perfect example of how it can be done well, where it benefits people, where profit is used to invest in people. So it's all about how you create a space where people want to stay and live and work.
When Robert Owen comes here in around 1800 and marries into the family line of the Dales, he starts to really come up with some quite forward-thinking, revolutionary ideas. He was a game changer here. So he sets about on really focusing on improving the workforce, not only in a sort of condition-based sense, but also what they're doing outside of the conditions of the work. How you're living outside of your work and how that filters into how that work gets done.
There's nowhere else they're going to get their homes covered and paid for, clean homes, you know, such low rates of disease. They're getting free inoculations from smallpox.
Allowing men like Robert Owen to live in the lovely house that they can and keep the workers happy by just bumping up the housing a little bit.
The quality of food that they can get from their local store and the value of that food, it is 70% cheaper than they'd be paying for food in the cities.
The money bought at the store goes directly back into the community. Owen reduced the working hours of the children working here.
The number of them who could read and write is significant. If you are under the age of 10 years old, you are not going to work, unlike everybody else that is living in this country at the time. You go into the school. At Robert Owen School, it was a very expansive curriculum. So they're doing geography, they're doing history, they're doing music, and dance was such an important part of it as well. Now, for the rest of the family who've maybe gone to work in the factory,
the clattering and noise of machines would cause a tremendous amount of poor communication within the workplace.
They didn't enforce corporal punishment. What they had was, it was called the silent monitor. It was a four-sided block.
Different colours to denote different qualities of work. White being excellent, yellow being okay, blue being indifferent, and black being terrible. So therefore, you have a four-tier system in which the workers can identify the quality of their work. So that silent monitor creates uniformity within the workplace, and it gives everybody the same role.
It was supposed to almost shame people into performing better. Not a perfect system, but better than getting beaten in the factories in the city. New Lanark had a real sense of purpose, and that purpose was making a boatload of money. The fact that people weren't being paid physical wages. It was too paternalistic. Almost becomes a cult, I suppose.
It doesn't let people have any free time or individualism outside of their work, and therefore the concept is that your life is here and it stays here. That is exploitative.
The issue was he kept those working class people very working class. His idea was that they should be able to go and talk to anybody about any subject, but they still looked and felt very much like working class people. Yeah, okay, maybe they could have just still lived in tenements, but he didn't allow them to have the same social freedoms as his family got to experience. He becomes so intent on finding things that prove his belief system that he will essentially drive himself into the ground. He's a great and very interesting man. With many, many, many flaws. I mean, New Lanark is a wonderful place and he did a wonderful thing there, but he lost control of it entirely because they were all so angry at having their lives controlled.
So the idea of utopia is an industrial utopia. It's a place where production is optimum, mechanisation is at the max, and there's some sense of beauty that's maintained within the local area. I'd say that was that concept of utopia in the 18th century, and also sprawling gardens and arrangement of space. That's quite progressive for the time that came about, in around 1800.
New Lanark exists in a bubble. It's not like what was happening in New Lanark was happening in every other factory in Scotland. It was the exact opposite. For Robert Owen himself to be so paternalistic and to not give voice to his working class community is a real issue. You know, it's very much him saying, I know what you would like better than what you actually need.
The housing itself, that's something that I think relative to social housing in this day and age is quite important. The idea that you would come and work here and you'd be given a house and in return you work.
We have to be able to create things that are self-sufficient. We can't have things that rely on being funded from external sources. The most important thing for me is that services need to exist within communities and actual planned space needs to be in communities. So people have to have walkable access to healthcare. They have to have walkable access to food and resources. They have to have walkable access to schools and education.
I think Utopia was a place, I think in terms of how they viewed it, it was a base of a balance between benefiting the rich and the poor at the same time.